all your biggest questions.
We will answer
in one episode.
Okay, anyways, we're gonna start. Hey everybody, welcome to Chris's Corner. I know we're working on a great new name, but who knows
It's coming.
What that is yet.
We've been advertising that for a while.
People are like, but it's on its way. Who knows, but I think it is.
Yeah.
And I'm here with Jer, I'm Steph, and before we hop into some small group content, I'd love just to chat about Serve Vancouver. It's coming up this Saturday and we're super excited about it. There's many opportunities to work with partners. So many of you small groups have already signed up to do different projects. But if you haven't, or you look on the website and don't see anything that interests you, feel free to email me directly. I'd love to get you hooked up with an opportunity, or there's still a few spots there. You can sign up for something. And we're just so excited to have our whole church serving with our partners in our community this Saturday.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that. And now jumping into a little bit of Sunday. Great sermon, Jer. It's really awesome to see your passion. And I'd love you just to share a little recap for anyone who maybe wasn't able to hear it on Sunday.
Yeah, well, there's a lot. You know, we could have taken longer through the book of Ephesians than we've taken, because there's just sometimes these sections like, well, there's a lot being said, there's a lot going on, lots of imagery. The summary is that Paul uses this imagery of light and darkness, sleeping and waking up. And so talked about how he's really speaking to the church, he's speaking to Christians, he's saying, remember, you were once darkness, now you're light, so live as children of light. And I spent most of the time breaking it up into two sections, just saying, you know, what does he say in this text about how we can make sure we've left the old and we're not going back to our old life? Yeah. And then the second section was on what does it mean to live as children of light? How do we do that? What does that even look like? And so I'm excited for small groups to be able to talk about that, like talk practically, like how do we do these things? So I think lots of the talk was practical, but there was a lot it was like a bit of a fire hose of things. So I think discussion will be really neat for that.
And I loved your first part and how much you dove into the old self. So could you just maybe speak to our community and what you'd want them to know about that piece?
Yeah. Well, I would just want to say that I think it's an important thing to acknowledge that it's really easy to go backwards. And in many ways, I mean, my life this year, I can think of so many areas, and I'm sure you can too, just like, you know, we forget what Jesus has done and who he is and how important, like how we do know life is in him. And so we get kind of lured back into old ways of thinking and into worldliness, into compromise. And so I think my biggest thought is that I really hope in small groups we can look at the text and then actually have an honest conversation about how do you think we can help each other? Like, how can we help each other not return to the old? And even though temptation comes, to recognize that we don't have to go back, and there's things that we can do to help our hearts not go back, which is what I was really talking about. But I think I hope that we have great discussions around that. And I mean, even in this moment, so I feel like feeling like just asking, like, for you, what's helped you not go back? Because I talked about a bunch of things, but
yeah, I would say for me, it's been accountability. It's having people in my life that it's not easy, but telling them, hey, I'm really struggling with this. This is a really dark part of me, and it's something that I'm susceptible to, and it's where I get sucked into temptation the most. Right. Being vulnerable with people that care about you, and then asking them to hold you accountable, asking them to check in on you, because it's things that you need people to encourage you and push you to do better, even though sometimes it's hard and it means showing that side of yourself, but we're all human and we all have areas. And so being vulnerable with people that care about you is the way that I've been able to, it's not perfect. There's definitely times where you slide back into old ways, but it keeps you moving forward into the new life. Yeah,
and it's such a good thing thanks for sharing. It's such a good thing to talk about in small groups, is because although it might not be in our small groups that we go the deepest that we go. Like, what I mean is there's a level in which we are able to be accountable and share about our lives. But then obviously there's certain things you probably only want to share with a couple people. But I mentioned in the talk around accountability that I have a friend in the last few months, and we've been texting back and forth once a week, just this list of kind of pretty intense questions like, where's the worst place your heart went this week?
That's good.
But then also good questions like, where have you experienced Jesus in your life this week in the most profound way? And so what it's doing for me is it's that kind of accountability where we've committed to just say what's true, but also just help us guard our hearts. And so I think I just want to say, for our community, like there's a level in which in small groups, we're able to dive into that and help one another in that at a certain level. But then also there's this need, like you're referencing, to even have people in our lives where we just make sure we're talking about our hearts and where we're at, and not pretending for a second like we're living his light.
Yeah.
And it's all good all the time. It's just not. It's a really hard journey. And so we need to be honest about that and help one another in that. So yeah, so good.
And I think the other side of that, which you spent the second half focusing on, is new life and living as children of light. And can you just speak to us of what you'd want the community of the Way to know about moving into that?
Yeah. I mean, again, there's so much in this text and so much was in the talk. I think what the biggest thing I'd want you to hear, even if you didn't hear the sermon, I think the biggest thing I want to make sure is clear is that like the Christian life is about so much more than accountability around things that we're meant to leave behind. The Christian life is actually primarily about a whole new life that we're called into. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like some people have many people, including myself at times, have bought this lie that Christianity's essence is to say no to this life so that I can be like at this certain level of piety, but it is about walking in a whole new way of living that is amazing and that requires your whole self and that requires us to give ourselves. A friend, mentor, I don't know, whatever to call him, a friend encouraged me many times in my life. He goes, Jer, always call people to a Christianity that's worth giving your life for. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's what I want our community here. Like the walking as children of light is about a call on all of our lives to live out Christianity in a way that's like, this is worth dying for. This is worth all my energy and strength and the best of me. It's not just about like, how can we pretty up our lives? Mm-hmm. And so it's about living in response to who Jesus is. And so that's the big thing I want. And then I would love for people to, in small groups to talk about, what do we feel like the text says? How do we? What does it mean to walk as children of light? The last thing we want is just go, so walk as children of light, everyone. Have a good week. It's like, what does it mean? And so, that's my thought on that.
Oh, that's great. And we'd encourage you guys, if you haven't already, to dive into scripture before you start chatting about it and just see what you take away from it. And then hop into these questions of what does it look to leave your old self behind? And what is it like to live as children of life?
Yeah, we love you guys. We're praying for you. Hope you have a great small group this evening.